In tonight's Dateline Defense, Putin's play in Syria. Russian forces have carried out their first airstrike in the war-torn country, but not against ISIS. Could the situation in the country escalate? For insight, we turn to our guest tonight on Capitol Insider, retired Army Colonel Douglas Macgregor. He's a decorated combat veteran, author, PhD, and executive vice president of the Burke-McGregor Group. Earlier today, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said this at the UN General Assembly.
On the 30th of September, in response to a letter by the President of Syria, the President of Russia asked and received the consent of the Council of Federation for the use of the armed forces of the Russian Federation in the Syrian Arab Republic. We're referring here exclusively to operation of the Russian Air Force to carry out strikes against ISIL positions in Syria.
Well, we now know that's not true. U.S. officials say they were actually targeting anti-Assad forces in a region that isn't known to have any Islamic militants. Senator John McCain said this shows the true intentions of Putin. Doug, is he right?
Well, he's partially correct. I think our friend Putin has made a profound mistake. He's jumped with both feet into Syria. He's publicly allied himself with Iran and Iran's satellite states in Baghdad and Damascus. Effectively, he's turned Russia almost overnight into the new great Satan for all of the Sunni Muslim Arabs and Turks in the area. So I think, yes, he's going to use air power and whatever else he's got against anyone he sees fit to attack. But he is absolutely going to support Mr. Assad and his Iranian allies.
I'm going to get to some various religious factions that you touched on in just a second. But first, the State Department says Russia only gave 1 hour's notice through a diplomat in Baghdad about the strike in Syria. The U.S. was told to clear the skies, but no other information was given. Now, is the Russian strategy to bully the United States here? And is this a sign Russia has no interest in cooperating with the U.S.?
I think Russia would like to deconflict what it does with us. I don't think the Russians want a confrontation with us any more than we want one with them. However, Russia does not, under any circumstances, want to be seen as subordinating itself to the United States and its allies. More important, it doesn't want to be seen as asking permission. So the fact that they took so long to inform us is not surprising.
Doug, let's talk about the implications. We now have U.S. partners conducting airstrikes in the region against ISIS, with Russia bombing non-ISIS targets. What happens if U.S. allies get injured?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure what we can expect our so-called allies to do. Look, everyone is going to pursue their interests. We were shocked when the Turks immediately launched strikes against the Kurds. Now we're surprised that Mr. Putin is launching strikes in support of his ally, Mr. Assad. The fact that these are Sunni Muslim Arabs that are opposed to Assad is important to Mr. Putin, and he could care less whether they're part of the caliphate or not. We've got to come to terms with the reality that Syria and Iraq don't exist. They're just populated by various groups and tribes, peoples that now have new allegiances, who are all fighting for different agendas. Trying to sort through this as we have thus far and play referee, if you will, is a losing proposition. Mr. Putin is not going to do that. He's got allies, he's going to fight with them, and he's going to defend them.
Now, there are also reports that the Russians are using anti-aircraft weapons in the region. Doug, ISIS doesn't have any aircraft, so how would the Russians use anti-aircraft systems?
Well, for the Russians, first of all, it's standard procedure to immediately build an integrated air defense network. They're a long way from having that network in place, but they're working on it, and their desire is obviously to protect their airspace and their airports. Right now, they've got one soft airfield, and they have no means of protecting it should the Turks or the Saudis or anyone else decide for some reason to attack them, or for that matter, even the Israelis. So I don't think we should be surprised by that, but we should be concerned once that integrated air defense system is in place.
Senator John McCain condemned Russia's airstrike and called for stronger leadership from the Obama administration. So how should the U.S. respond to Moscow's latest move, Doug?
If your opponent, in this case Mr. Putin, is making a supremely stupid mistake, then you should not stand in his way. He is really putting himself and Russia in the middle of the Sunni-Shia war across the region. Anyone who thinks the Turks, the Saudis, and the other peninsular Arabs, their allies, the Pakistanis, are at all happy about the Russian presence is crazy. he's effectively said he is going to help support Iran's control of Mesopotamia. That's a prescription for long-term conflict, not just with the Sunni Arabs and Turks in the Middle East, but with the Sunni Muslim Turks across the Caucasus and Central Asia. So I think it's a very bad move. We should draw back. We should try to return to the sidelines. Let this sort itself out. Let the region decide who it wants to support and who it will oppose. I think if we do this, we can cut our losses. After all, we've spent 25 years creating chaos and destruction. At some point, we should stop.
Now, also, how does Russia's involvement impact the American-led coalition against ISIS? France just started bombing targets in Syria. We have other allies helping us out. Does this change things for them?
Yes, I think it does. The Europeans are actually more closely aligned with Mr. Putin's thinking at this point. We may not like that, but that's the truth. They have never seen the Shia as the principal enemy of the West. They regard the Sunni Muslim Arabs in the region, particularly ISIL, but also its supporters among the Turks and the Peninsular Arabs, as the real enemy. So I think we'll see the French, the British potentially cooperate perhaps more closely with the Russians than we would.
Before you go, Doug, let's discuss the raising of the Palestinian flag at the United Nations. It's caused some controversy. Obama has supported the idea, while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected it. What's your take?
Gosh, if I were Mr. Netanyahu, I would be deeply, deeply wounded by this. This is insult to injury. He lost a battle to stop the American-Iranian nuclear agreement. Now he's got the world stepping up to support the two-state solution he says he will not accept. This has all got to be bad news, and I think this in part will play into Israel's relationship with Russia. I think Mr. Netanyahu is now going to turn to Mr. Putin, not simply deconflict operations, but try to come to new arrangements in the region that are in Israel's interests. It'll be really fascinating to see what the Israelis do with Moscow.
These are going to be interesting and difficult times. We'll follow them here. Retired Army Colonel Douglas Macgregor, Executive Vice President of the Burke Macgregor Group. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.